All right, last video for the day. Not sure what I'm going to name this one, but basically it's an extension of the Ohio State Part 1, Part 2. Basically, the point is, if we are just going to create a structure system, which the expanded playoff basically is, maybe there'll be a course correction. But historically in college football, in the BCS era, in the 14 playoff era, the best team won. Now, there's a distinction there. In the BCS era, talent spread out quite a bit. Still, the team with the most talent won the championship for the most part. I think everybody was stunned when Vince Young in '05 led Texas over the USC Trojans because USC was the dynasty at the time of the era. And but the BCS, I mean, you had like I feel like going into the year, nobody knew who would win the title. It was kind of mysterious. There was probably 8 to 10 teams there at the top. You always had Florida State, you always had USC, you always Texas to some degree under Mack Brown, Michigan under Lloyd Carr at that time, Ohio State, Jim Tressel. That was this top tier Florida under Urban Meyer. There were all these teams. This was really before Saban got into the game. And I think Saban is the reason so many of these changes have happened. And I don't think it's for the better of the sport, to be honest. He came in and he just recruited like a dog at Alabama, created a culture where the best players were going there. And then we changed to a 14 playoff model. And a couple years into that, early on you had Baylor and TCU. They got snubbed out of the Big 12 from getting in, even though they had great years. You had Michigan State and Notre Dame get rolled early on in the playoff era, the 14 playoff era, and that was like the last time where you kind of saw some of those. Washington got into the playoff early on. I can't remember if that was 13 or 14. And then so basically there was a time where, oh, hey, look, there's some some of these teams are getting in, and then there was a period before the portal, probably between 14 and 2019, where the playoff was so predictable, maybe even to COVID 2020, where you had Alabama beat Ohio State. There was basically 4 teams. It was Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson. They dominated the sport. They controlled the sport. All the best players were going to those schools. Georgia jumped in there. And it was worse than the BCS era because you basically funneled 10 to 12 of the best teams, funneled down to like 3 or 4, and all the best players were going. And you looked at the rosters; those teams were killing everybody. There was a period there where a couple of years where it was like upsets weren't happening, like in the BCS era, where middle of the pack teams could upset the best schools on a regular basis. Kept college football really fun. But now with the expanded playoff, you still have a couple teams that are going to get loaded rosters, and they're not going to have the best regular season, and they're going to hit the playoff and they're going to kill everyone else. And that is my biggest problem with college football. Just use the Vegas spread. Look at the power rankings. That'll tell you who your champion's going to be.